If you have ever wondered how people survived the open plains when winter temperatures plunged far below freezing with no forests for shelter and no modern insulation, this episode is for you. Too often, plains tribes are portrayed as purely warm-season hunters moving freely across endless grasslands. That picture collapses the moment winter arrives. Blizzards, sub-zero winds, frozen rivers, and scarce food made the plains one of the most unforgiving winter environments in North America. Yet, plains tribes did not merely endure these conditions, they mastered them. What you're about to hear is not romantic folklore or vague survival wisdom. These are deliberate, tested systems refined over generations, and many of them remain brutally effective today if you understand the logic behind them. Let's get straight into the first technique, because this one alone challenges how most modern people think about cold weather shelter. How teepee design turned wind into insulation rather than an enemy. The plains teepee was not just a portable home. It was a cold-weather engineering solution. Its conical shape mattered because wind does not slam into a cone the way it does a flat wall. Instead, wind flows around it, reducing pressure and preventing heat loss through structural failure. In winter, tribes used double-lining systems inside the teepee. An inner liner made of hide was hung several inches from the outer cover, creating a dead air space. That trapped air acted as insulation, similar to modern double-wall tents. Snow was not always cleared away from the base. In many cases, snow was banked around the edges intentionally, sealing drafts and stabilizing interior temperatures. A small central fire, properly vented through adjustable smoke flaps, could heat the interior efficiently without suffocating occupants. For modern survivalists, this teaches a key lesson: shape and airflow matter more than sheer thickness of materials. Even a tarp shelter can be improved dramatically if designed to redirect wind and trap still air. Why plains winter clothing focused on breathability, not bulk? Heavy, sweat-trapping clothing kills people in cold environments. Plains tribes understood this long before modern cold-weather science. Winter garments were typically made from buffalo, elk, or deer hides with the hair left on. But the key was layering and fit. Clothing was loose enough to allow air circulation, yet tight enough at cuffs and seams to prevent wind intrusion. Moccasins were often worn with dried grass, sage, or fur liners that wickered moisture away from the feet. When liners became damp, they were replaced or dried near the fire. This prevented frostbite caused by trapped sweat freezing against skin. The practical takeaway here is simple and often ignored. Staying dry is more important than staying thickly dressed. Anyone preparing for winter travel should prioritize moisture management over piling on insulation. How food preservation strategies made winter starvation rare rather than inevitable. Winter survival began months earlier. Plains tribes did not hunt reactively. They planned. Meat was dried into pemmican or jerky during warmer months, often mixed with rendered fat and berries. Fat was the real winter fuel. It provided dense calories essential for thermoregulation. Frozen meat was not feared, it was welcomed. Stored in shaded pits or hung where scavengers could not reach it, frozen meat preserved itself naturally. When needed, it could be shaved or thawed slowly over low heat. Modern preppers can apply this by rethinking food storage priorities. High-fat, shelf-stable calories outperform bulky carbohydrate-heavy supplies in cold environments. Freezing is not a failure of preservation. In winter climates, it is preservation. Now, it's quite interesting. Controlled fire use actually reduced fuel needs rather than increasing them. Contrary to what many folks might think, plains tribes did not keep roaring fires going all night long. Large fires, you see, burn through fuel rapidly and waste precious heat due to uncontrolled airflow. Instead, small, steady fires were carefully maintained, with close attention paid to draft control inside the teepee. Sometimes hot stones were heated and placed near sleeping areas, radiating warmth well after the flames had died down. Firewood selection was important too. Dried buffalo dung, often misunderstood by outsiders, burned slowly and steadily, giving off consistent heat with very few sparks. This meant there was less need for constant tending. The lesson for us today is all about efficiency. A small heat source, combined with good insulation and airflow control, is far more effective than a big fire that quickly burns through your fuel reserves. Now, let's talk about movement patterns and why they changed. Not to seek out more resources, but to conserve energy. During winter, plains tribes adjusted their mobility quite thoughtfully. Large movements across open terrain were kept to a minimum. Camps were set up in sheltered spots like river bends, coulees, or low ground that could break the wind. Hunting parties were smaller and much more targeted, which helped reduce the calories spent. In deep snow, snowshoes were used to prevent exhaustion and injury. The underlying principle here is conservation. In cold environments, unnecessary movement can be a silent killer. Modern survival advice often stresses action and exploration, but as we see, the plains tribes show us that sometimes knowing when not to move is just as important. Social systems, believe it or not, acted as a kind of survival technology. Perhaps the most overlooked winter survival tool was, in fact, cooperation. Food sharing wasn't considered charity, it was a form of insurance. Families and bands would redistribute resources to make sure everyone survived. Knowledge about weather patterns, animal behavior, and shelter maintenance was shared openly. Orphans, elders, and those who were injured received support, because losing any member weakened the group in the long run. For those of us interested in preparedness, this really drives home a tough truth. Isolation is fragile. Community, even on a small scale, multiplies your chances of survival far more than just having a big stockpile. So, these 6 techniques really reveal something important. The plains tribes didn't depend on luck or sheer endurance. They relied on systems: shelter, clothing, food, fire, movement and social organization. All of these work together as one unified strategy. If you remove just one, winter could become deadly. But keep them all aligned, and survival wasn't just possible, it was sustainable. If you find this kind of deep, practical historical knowledge valuable, do consider subscribing to the Prepper Historian channel. Share this episode with someone who takes history or survival seriously, and help keep these lessons alive. The past, after all, still has a lot to teach those who are willing to listen.